Blizz Pro is changed. I feel it in the podcast. I feel it in the live stream. I smell it in the YouTube. Much that was once listened to is now watched. And for none now live who remember iTunes. It began with the forging of the great Blizz Pro podcasts. 2 were given to the WoW players, committed, loyal, the nerdiest of all gamers. 1 was given to the Hearthstone players, poor, lonely, without friends. 1 was given to the Heroes of the Storm players, most of whom can't even play the game. And one podcast was given to Diablo players. People who crave power above all else, who will do the same crap over and over again for hundreds of hours towards no real purpose. Oh yeah, and StarCraft. No podcasts were given to them, but this show, Westmarch Workshop, one of Blizz Pro's fine podcasts, we talk about Diablo. There we go. That's my parody intro. That's not quite improv, but I did my best.
Yep, that was awesome. You had me there.
Yes, that of course was a parody of Star Trek for anyone who's not a Star Trek fan. That's the famous intro about the 9 rings. Anyways, moving on with
I think you crossed the streams there.
Never cross the streams. Oh yeah, well
just got to get another reference in there.
Let's turn the show up to 11 and get started, shall we?
Let's do it. Yeah.
All right. Well, how was your week in gaming, Nineball?
My week in gaming actually was rather short. I had a friend in from out of town. He lives in Arkansas. I live in Florida, so I don't get to see him that often, and he's been a really good friend of mine forever. I've known him since high school, and it was also just special because the last time that I saw him, he was here in Florida and he was getting married, and I was actually the person that officiated the wedding, and it was a huge gamer wedding. You know, we, instead of using a Bible, we used a Dungeon Master's Guide. They had me read a speech about zombies, and I threw in Matrix and Lord of the Rings references and Star Wars and Star Trek and all those other types of stuff.
That sounds amazing. Wait, are you actually licensed to do weddings?
No, in Florida, you either have to be anointed, or be a notary republic. Of
and
which
you were anointed by Tyrael, or
yeah,
right?
That would be awesome. Anointed in the Church of the Light. I am a Zacharin priest, but no, they went to the courthouse. They got the actual official wedding done out of the way, and then the ceremony itself was just for show. But that was a fun time. Again, really good friend of mine. So when he was in town this weekend, most of my time was spent with him. So I didn't have much time after the anniversary stream. He got in town the next day, and that was pretty much all of my weekend gaming, was going and hanging out with him. Though the one thing that we did do on Saturday, there was a concert that played called Video Games Live. If you've never heard of it, you need to go and look it up. And you need to go and check the tour dates and see if it's coming to a town near you, because it's something, as a gamer, you should just experience. It's amazing. They play a whole bunch of video game music with an orchestra and choir. They change up the show all the time. A lot of time, obviously, you're always gonna have something from like Zelda or Mario or Halo, but they throw in a bunch of extra little things. So it's awesome show. Definitely something I would suggest for anybody who's a gamer.
That's really cool. So it's just one orchestra playing songs from a bunch of popular games?
Oh yeah, they played there was Sonic, Mega Man. They played some things from Zelda, Final Fantasy VI. They played Invincible from World of Warcraft. They played Chrono Trigger. There's a ton of different things. I'm not even remembering everything that they did. They played the Space Invader. There's one thing that they always do. I should explain that. They will have someone from the audience come up and play Space Invaders on the TV show, or on the giant TV screen, and you are the controller. They track you with a camera, and as you have to run back and forth across the screen, and you have a button that you press to shoot. and instead of having the kind of like the Space Invader background music, the orchestra is playing and getting faster and faster and faster as the time is winding down. So it is awesome. It's
That's
something
really
that you
cool.
should look up and take a look at, definitely. So, but
Yeah.
that pretty much sums up my week in gaming. What about you?
Well, what about the anniversary stream? Maybe this would be a good time to mention. What were some of the things? I know some of the people I'm sure caught it. It was a 5 hour stream, four of us talking to different people from Blizzard, from
Mm-hmm.
different departments, and Nine Ball covered lore and story.
Or in story.
Did you? I was able to catch that one. Was there
Mm-hmm.
any like things that you were excited about that they said during
Oh,
the stream?
one of the things that it's not really obviously they couldn't talk about anything going forward with the story. I highly doubt that they really even have any concrete plans of where they want to go next.
Yeah.
Or even if they did, they're not going to tell us. But one of the things I was actually really excited to hear about was when I asked them a question about some of the things that were data mined. There was a point in the beta when people pulled the audio files and there was quotes from Mephisto and Bale sounding as if they had actually possessed Malthael during that end fight. And when they went through and they answered, they actually went pretty in depth in it, and they said that it wasn't so much that they were possessing him after he absorbed the Black Soul Stone, is that he was channeling their power. But unlike Diablo 2, throw the Soul Stone in the forehead and it slowly consumes Aiden, Malthael was in control. He would have been in control the entire time. He was actually powerful enough to control all of the primevals while they were contained in his body through the Black Soul Stone. So it was interesting little thing there. At the beginning, I kind of locked up and froze during my podcast, not because I was like nervous or anything like that, but I had my very first question I had prepared was going to be about the death of Deckard Cain and why they decided they needed to do it, or if they were just always going to do it, and just ask them about that. And then the stream started, and Evolistus was like, we're going to go and play through Act 5 story mode, so feel free to ask any questions you have about Act 5 of Reaper of Souls. And I'm like, oh crap, I have to rethink this. And then the very first question she takes from Twitter is about Deckard Cain's death. So I was just thrown for a loop because it's like, oh, I can't ask my first question, and they ask it. So I just first 5 minutes, my brain was just trying to catch up and recover there. So, but from there, it was all good, all fun.
Nice. I don't know about you, but when they brought me on the call before the play session, I was the only one on the call. Well, me and some person I
Yeah.
never heard of.
Mm-hmm.
I was just waiting for the other three people to join the call, and then all of a sudden I hear like, "This is Nevelistis, and I'm here with Josh Mosquera," and I'm like, "Oh crap, we're live right now!" And I had no idea I was like on camera or anything. I think I was like slouching back, but
Yeah, I know. They did the same thing to me. It's like, check for the call. Please wait for your audio and sound check. Okay,
yeah,
we're going live. What? They didn't ask me to talk or do any type of sound check or anything, so it was funny.
yeah, it caught me off guard. But yeah, I felt kind of lucky to be able to talk with Josh Mosquera and Rob Foote,
Big man.
and I mean, you never really get any reveals from these kind of play sessions. The most you're hoping for is to get some hints, or maybe some
Mm-hmm.
insight into what they're thinking about. But I feel pretty confident after the play session that they're going to be adding um, legendary gems.
Yeah, I mean, it was heavily into that. The other thing that they talked about was something about some sort of correlation between tier rifts and changing people's builds. Now, I don't really think that you're going to be able to do that with the monster selection, but I wonder if the tiered rifts themselves are going to have some sort of bonus or effect on certain skills or elemental types when you go into them to change things up and force you to change your spec more or less.
Yeah, I think they're going to do a lot of fun stuff with that. I mean, they were talking about with seasons how they don't have any specific plans, but they have ideas of changing up the rules and changing up how the game interacts with the player and everything during each season. So things could be completely different. We might get new monsters, new monster affixes, skills might work differently. I think they could do a lot of fun stuff because, I mean, like worst case scenario, even if some crazy rule or change they put in ruins the game, it's just till the end of the season. Like it's going to be
Yeah.
out anyways. They might as well play around and do some fun, crazy stuff. I think.
That is your opportunity to stick through it and try to you get your best clear time, get your name on the leaderboard for the season when everyone else is calling it quits instead of waiting until next time.
Yeah. And if I could jump forward a little bit here, it just seems like an opportune time to mention this. It seems like that's kind of what happened with this anniversary buff. I don't know if they had talked about it before implementing it, but after the anniversary buff went in, which of course doubled people's legendary drop chance and blood shard
Mm-hmm.
drops, they
Blood
started.
shard or rift
Oh,
keys?
sorry, yes, rift fragments. Um, they started talking about just keeping the legendary buff, or at least part of it. And a big forum started. I think it was a few days ago that it started going crazy. And then right before our podcast, because the Diablo gods have decided that all announcements will come right before our podcast. Uh,
Yep.
um,
Slightly over an hour ago.
yeah, and quite quickly too, which makes me think that maybe they had thought about this earlier. They decided to keep the double legendary drop chance from the anniversary buff.
Yeah.
So
That.
yeah, you guys can look forward to twice the legendary chance you've gotten since ROS release. Well, I guess even after that, because they've buffed it since release. Um, which I found very interesting, but I know we're kind of jumping ahead. This just seemed like the big piece of news this week. I thought we'd get right into it. How do you feel about the double legendary chance? You think that's a good change?
It's. Well, I'm not gonna say no to more loot. I mean, I definitely won't say that. But looking at it from kind of like a psychological or design aspect, that this is going to become the norm. And obviously, someone is going to go through and they're going to have they're playing on Torment 6 and they hit a 45-minute window where they don't have any legendaries drop. It's RNG, it's going to happen. You're going to have dead streaks, and people will complain about it. And people will want more and more until every single mob that you kill drops a legendary. People aren't going to be happy, and even then, I'm sure some people will still complain. So it's that point where it's, at what point do you kind of say no or give a little bit of pushback? Obviously, this is something that's very, very big in the community right now, and there's a lot of push in wanting to get the legendary buff, made permanent, and they did that successfully. But how long will it make people happy? And then the people that have been complaining about the drop rates and are happy now, how many weeks will it be before they start complaining again? That's just my kind of cynical look at it.
No, it's a fair point. I think there's always going to be a portion of the players who say the drop chance isn't high enough. I think that for the casual player, this is going to be a good change. I think for probably the majority of players, even with twice as many legendaries, they're not going to get all the items they want before seasons come out. Um, so I think for them it's a good change. I think the people that it's not going to be a good change for are the people who play all day, every day.
Mm-hmm.
Those people are, well, most of them are already geared out. They have all the pieces they want. Now they're just trying to min-max the rolls on those pieces. But even if they don't, let's say they started playing recently, they're playing all day, every day, they're going to gear out really quickly and they're going to get bored really fast. And then those players who aren't completely geared out are catching up. They're progressing at a much faster rate. Once
Yeah.
you have all your gear, you're progressing very slowly, of course. So if I was a hardcore player playing all day every day like I have been in the past, not so much the last few weeks, I would not like this change for personal reasons, but I think that Diablo really should be focused on casual players. I think that's the core of the players. I think that nowadays in gaming, hardcore players just want a lot more from a game if they're going to put 8 to 12 hours a day into it. And Diablo's the kind of game you're going to get the most enjoyment out of if you're just putting, a couple hours a day, maybe only in a handful of hours a week, and doubling the legendary chance will definitely improve the gameplay for those people.
Yeah, it'll definitely have an impact for those that have only a limited amount of time to play the game. That just they're going to go on. Let me just do a couple acts of bounties, and then I'll do 3 rifts. Something along those lines. But all that could definitely change when seasons come in and we have tiered rifts. It gives something for people looking for the end game, that little competitive edge to it.
Yeah, and that's part of what makes me think that maybe they had this planned. Not so much that they knew they were going to double the legendary chance, but that before they put in the anniversary buff, I'd be willing to bet that they talked, hey, let's just do it as an anniversary buff, see how it goes. If they like it, we'll keep it in. Because let's be honest, a lot of people are getting bored. A lot of the hardcore people that play constantly are getting bored with the game. And this seems like an easy way to get people back into the game, and it's also low risk because seasons are coming up, and yeah, worst case scenario, you get geared and then you start over on seasons.
Yep. Which is Oh, I'll talk about that one later. That's later for our feedback section. But yeah,
Sounds good.
yep.
Well, I guess we had a little bit more news this week.
Yeah. Let's see. There's some of the things that we had. We covered the anniversary buff already. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm in the process of getting sick. I'm like, so I have to cut off my mic every once in a while.
It's all right. Well, something I really enjoyed that came out this week was the story of Diablo.
Yes.
And that's good for lazy lore noobs like me, I think. And now the entire story from Diablo 1 till now is just written down. You can just read through it.
Yeah, it's you can see it right there. It's in the game guide itself. It's not that long. It's only like 53. It's 53 pages, but they're short pages and there's pictures, so it's a very very quick read. You can probably go through the whole thing in maybe 20 minutes, if that long.
Yeah, it's like if it was just written out, it'd probably be like 10 to 12 pages.
Yeah, and it's just a nice, quick, simple that you see some pictures. There's some ones that I recognize for like the Book of Cain and the Book of Tyrael. Some very, very beautiful illustrations in there. And of course, it kind of gives you that backstory of everything that's happened in Diablo 1, Diablo 2, Lord of Destruction, all the way up to the end of Diablo 3, right before Reaper of Souls, to just kind of get you caught up with the story.
Yeah, really nice. I'm definitely gonna have to read through it. I haven't read much of it yet, but yeah,
And
I'm not gonna read all the other books. Might as well just take the Cliff Note version right here.
yeah, there was also another short story that they released last week. It was the Brother in Arms. It's a short story about Mikolov, who is a monk that was featured in the books The Order and Storm of Light. He's kind of like a peripheral character in both of them. He gets a little bit more screen time, as it were, in Storm of Light. It's a very interesting read. Just something that I definitely would recommend. I mean, they've been coming out with a bunch of these short stories. Last year, or not last year, but at the beginning of Diablo 3, they did a huge amount. They did 5 short stories, one for each of the classes, and they released them in this big fanfare. Darkness Falls, Heroes Rise, or maybe it was Heroes Rise, Darkness Falls. Some combination of all of those words. And they they kind of introduced you to what it was like to be that class. And then with Reaper of Souls, we didn't really get as big of a fanfare, but we still got the story, the end of her journey, which gives you a wonderful telling of what it's like to be a crusader. Then we had the Orphan and the Jeweler, which gives some backstory for Shin. It's a lot of very great reads because there is such a rich history in Sanctuary. It's definitely, not only is it my favorite game from all of the all of the Blizzard franchises, it's just one of the nicest in terms of stories in all of the novels. They have a lot of freedom to do so. The fact that even though there's demons and other monsters running around, the fact that all of the characters are human, it gives a little bit more identifiability, or allows you to identify with the characters a little bit better, instead of having hobbits or dwarves or something else, running around and doing things. So they're all really, really nice reads. Can't recommend them enough.
Yeah, I don't think I ever even considered reading these books until the podcast, and you're well, I don't really read, but you're starting to make me make an exception here for the Diablo books, because
I'm
yeah,
telling you,
you're selling me.
if anything, pick up the Book of Cain. That will be your gateway drug, from what we were talking about before the podcast. It's like, get the Book of Cain. It's a quick read. You'll finish it in an hour. It's full of wonderful illustrations, and it will tell you the entire backstory of Diablo, fill you in on what's Imperius's motivations, all those other types of stuff, and you'll want to read more. And then you get the Book of Tyrael, and that sets the stage from there. The Book of Tyrael is so amazing. I think I talked about the Book of Tyrael on just the last podcast, but I mean, it even tells you what Pindleskin's backstory is. I mean, anyone who's played Diablo 2 knows who Pindleskin is. Now you get to really know who he is.
That's what I've been wondering about this whole time. Pindleskin's backstory. Yeah.
Who is he? Where'd he come from?
Well, I was told to. Yeah. Well, where we go. I guess I'll have to read. I was told to stay away from drugs, but this seems like an exception. So I just roll up the pages and smoke them. Is that how
Um,
it's
you have
consumed?
to read it first. You sit there, you hold it in your hand, or you can put it in a stand, and you look at the pages, and then words start forming in your head. It is trippy.
Okay, I haven't
It's
done a
trippy.
drug this hardcore before, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna give it a try. I'm a daredevil, so I think maybe I'll jump in.
Hmm.
It's
Oh,
speaking of awesome media. I'm trying to tie this together. It's not working. Anyways, speaking of other cool things, Diablos made by
yes.
Carbot.
Oh my god.
Yes.
Is it too much to ask that we just stop the podcast and play the video? Are we allowed to do that, or is
I
there
could I
copyright
could
things?
play. You know what? We probably aren't supposed to play the video, and it would take me a while to get it up. But look
So,
for it.
all
Go.
right.
I will. I'm gonna get you guys the title of the video right now, so you can search for it. These are the same people that did the Reaper of Souls parody. They did like a
Hmm.
cartoon version of the Reaper of Souls cinematic, and now they're doing one for the original D3 cinematic because that one was really popular. If you just Google Diablo, it'll come up. Just Diablo LS. This one's called Diablo's 3 Opening Happy Anniversary. And basically just the audio from the D3 intro with new animated video that's hilarious.
Yeah, it is amazing. In the Reaper of Souls one, they had a little Easter egg. You could see all the Hellbovine in the murals in the background, and they're all worshiping this great entity, which is a box that has Wirt's leg and a tome of town portals in it, which obviously is the how you get to the Moo Moo farm.
That's
And then
hilarious. I
this
never noticed
one,
that.
yeah, in the newest one, Deckard Cain collects action figures. When you go through and you see him when he's sitting at his desk, you can see the action figures that he has there. One of them is a Wirt action figure, and it comes with little gold piles. That was awesome. I loved it.
Nice. Yeah, I'm not looking as intently as you are these cartoons. I need to go back for a few more sweeps, I guess.
Yep. So definitely always have to keep an eye out for them.
Pretty funny. But yeah, Carbot's animations are great, and I think they're just getting better.
Oh well, that they are. If you don't, he does the StarCraft series or StarCrafts series, which is amazing. Even if you don't care anything about StarCraft, that will make you enjoy. You will enjoy watching the StarCraft series. You will learn to like StarCraft after watching it. And then once you learn more about StarCraft, and if you ever watch a professional game or know how the game is played, the little jokes inside there will make so much more sense, and you'll enjoy it even more.
Yeah. I don't play StarCraft, but I watch a good amount of StarCraft. It's like I guess that seems weird, but I guess it's not weird if you like watch football but don't play football, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe someday it won't be weird. But yeah, StarCrafts are hilarious if you know just like the basics of StarCraft. You'll get most of the jokes.
Yeah, I guess bringing the Diablo podcast back into Diablo. The only other really thing was there was some hot fixes that we had that went live today.
Not even that hot.
Yeah, no, it's pretty much just they fixed the Inya set, so now the four piece will only apply to monks since they actually fixed it in 2.0.5. If you weren't a monk and wore the four piece set bonus, you would gain the effects of all four mantras.
Yeah, I think this is the kind of thing that's getting people to wear tinfoil hats. This whole thing like, oh, it's been broken. Finally, they fixed it, and then they nerfed it.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm pro the nerf because it seems like it's too buff to give everyone all four mantras. Um,
it it kind of harkens back to some of the things they did with rune words in D2, or just some of the set pieces like the at the time it was called Trang Ol's set. Now it's Trag Ol. Um, that gave the Necromancer a whole ton of sorceress skills.
hmm.
After what was it? I think that was post. It was either post 1.0.8 or 1.0 or 1.10. I don't remember exactly, but yeah. So there's a lot of different items and of course tons of rune words that gave classes different access to different skills. Having something like that, isn't that bad in my opinion. I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I guess the only worry there, of course, is that monks feel like they need to have what 6 piece in is if they're going to be useful in a group.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I mean, I guess I would have liked to see them wait a little bit longer before they nerfed it, because I know players are getting really suspicious that the devs are just nerfing anything that's fun, which, in my opinion, is a ridiculous idea,
Hmm.
but it's definitely the idea that a lot of players are getting. And yeah, I don't think there's much harm in letting something be overpowered for a little while. Especially nowadays, you're not worried about someone going and spending a bunch of money on the items. It's just if you happen to find them, you can use them.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it was a really quick nerf.
Yeah, and the other hot fix was the tall man's finger. It made it to where for a witch doctor, it puts all of your dogs into one gigantic dog, and that apparently was also giving buffs to other classes that had some form of pets. So Demon Hunter's companions were benefiting from it. Crusader's Phalanx was benefiting from it. It wasn't merging those pets together; they were just getting bigger and doing more damage. Um, which that actually kind of got me thinking. Outside of Tasker and Theo, only the Witch Doctor has like items that can radically change or buff their pets. I guess there is the Marauders 4-piece set bonus for Demon Hunters, but they have the Mask of Jerem, which gives you the buff to pet damage, and then the Tall Man's Finger, which will merge all the dogs into one gigantic dog, and actually gives it a damage bonus on top of that. And if you have items or skills that increase the number of dogs that you can have out, its damage continues to go up, and it gets ridiculous. I've seen like screenshots of the thing critting for, damn near like a billion or something along those lines.
Yeah, it gets pretty crazy. I think that before Reaper of Souls, a lot of players were missing the Necromancer, and so the devs kind of put more pressure on getting the Witch Doctor to the point where you could play it the way you
Hmm.
used to play Necromancer, but maybe don't want multiple classes that have the same playstyle. And so they're kind of making the Witch Doctor the pet class. If you want to be a pet build that where your pets deal the majority of your damage, play Witch Doctor. I think is kind of the idea.
Yeah, that definitely seems the route that they're going.
But yeah, I like it. I mean, I think for most people, the Necromancer can never really be replaced. But the Witch Doctor is getting a lot more fun since Reaper of Souls, in my opinion.
It definitely is a little itch in the back of my head that I've been wanting to scratch just to get that old play style back for a little bit at least.
Yeah, I think that would be one of the most popular new classes to add, but unfortunately, it would be so similar to the Witch Doctor. Once the excitement wore off, it'd probably just feel too similar.
Yeah, definitely. Um, I think that was really about it in terms of news items. There hasn't really been too much to cover other than that since our last episode.
No, but we asked for feedback last week, and we got a lot of feedback.
Yeah, that we did. That we did.
So yeah, and if you guys want to give more feedback, we're always willing to receive it. We'll probably read it on the show. It's westmarchworkshop at blizzpro.com to send us emails or items of the week. But should we just start it off with some emails? We have this one from Terry about
Uh,
hardcore.
yeah, I'll go ahead. We got two hardcore questions this week. Well, more of a one's a question, the other one is a story. I'll go ahead and start off with those. The first one's from Terry, and he wanted to know what we thought about changing it to where hardcore, if your character dies, that just became a softcore character.
Like Path of
Um,
Exile.
Yeah, and then also adding some sort of incentive, like an increased legendary drop chance on playing on hardcore or hardcore only legendaries, just to try and make it more appealing. To try and get more people to play it. And to me, I mean, that in and of itself is kind of a nice idea, but it's not really something that would appeal to me so much. Obviously, I would love to have a set of hardcore only legendaries. There is one which the missus actually like just had drop like 15 minutes ago during the podcast. The Ancient's Grace, I believe it's called, Ancestor's Grace, which it's an amulet that will bring you back to life if you die,
Hmm.
and that one can only drop in hardcore. Um,
Oh, that's interesting. So wait, what's the cooldown on it?
it consumes the item.
Oh, okay. It's like an ink, an
Yeah,
onk, I guess.
exactly. Um, in the part about if you lose the character, it goes to softcore. that kind of is just opposite of what it's like to play hardcore. You know that you're going to lose that character, and just keeping it as a softcore character doesn't really do anything for you, because then you might as well just play softcore, because then now, well, even though I didn't lose all of it, I still lost it because I don't have it on the hardcore side, so I still don't have any access to any of those items or anything. And it just is counterintuitive to what you want to do when you play hardcore, which is you understand the fact that you're going to lose the character. And it's more about the experience of playing hardcore than it is, leveling up the new character, or I lost all my gear, I gotta level up a new character. There's a whole backdrop, and I went into this in the last episode. I'm not going to go on a soapbox again, but it's just playing hardcore is more about the experience and the rush that you get while playing than it is, losing the character or anything like that. So those are some decent suggestions, but I think most hardcore players that are really into it are kind of say, no, I don't need that. If my hardcore character became a softcore character, I would just end up deleting it anyways, because I'm not really interested in playing softcore, and I'll need a new character space to roll a new hardcore character.
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with the culture of the game. I think for Path of Exile, I really like the system they have for Path of Exile. And the reason that I like it for that game is because hardcore is kind of like, I want to say it's the default, even though they call softcore default on Path of Exile. But really, if you're a serious Path of Exile player, you're playing hardcore. And if you're a serious Path of Exile player, you probably don't take softcore players very seriously. When I played Path of Exile, I played hardcore because it seems like that's the real game. Softcore is like, the easy version if you don't want to play the real game yet. And the culture in Diablo is completely different. The norm is to play softcore, and hardcore are the extremists. So if you had it so Path of Exile system, you become softcore when you die, then it wouldn't be a big loss in Diablo. You'd just be like, okay, you're going to normal mode. You tried the extreme, it didn't work out, now you can play with everyone else, and it would take away that hardcore feeling that I'm going to lose everything if I die. The reason I think it works in Path of Exile is because softcore is kind of laughed at, or default as it's called. It's just like you're not seen as a real competitor or player unless you're playing hardcore. So I think it works the way it works on Path of Exile very well because of the culture, but I think for Diablo it's better the way it is now as well.
Yeah, and that does, like you said, it kind of comes down to the culture. It's just Path of Exile does attract a more hardcore player, not in terms of softcore versus hardcore, but just hardcore versus casual. And Diablo is a much more casual friendly game. Not that that's bad in any way, shape, or form, but just the population differences that you have, like you were mentioning, it's very easy to see that with the mentality of the majority of the people that play it, look at the game from that perspective.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Sorry.
If you don't mind. Yeah,
go for it.
I'll just, while we're talking about hardcore, let me just take it on from there. This one is from Ninja Raiden, and this is actually a response to my soapbox from last episode 7, where at the end I kind of got a little bit ranty talking about hardcore. And he just wanted to go through and say that, I'll give you, this one is a pretty long story. It was actually, when I was reading through it, it was kind of touching. But he wanted to go and say that he had been playing a monk since day one, and that he's been a very hardcore player. Well, not exactly rolling hardcore, but he's played a ton of hours, all that. But he was feeling really burnt out. He was about to shelve the game, go on to the next thing. He listened to our podcast, and then he felt the urge that he had to give it a try. So he took my suggestion that everyone should try hardcore, get one character to level 70 in hardcore, and then die. At least, he took that one, and so he did it. And to him, it was just amazing. He's been having a wonderful experience. It's completely changed the way that he's looked at the game, and it's revitalized, his love for it. So now, when he found a piece of blackthorns, he was actually looking at it, with serious consideration. Normally he throws the stuff away, but that is an amazing piece of gear to get for a starting hardcore character, because it helps keep you alive. And just going through, checking out a whole bunch of things. The IK set for its survivability, because he's leveling up a barb, made it a bit more gave him a bit more incentive over there. He takes the time to actually kind of look at elite pack affixes. It just kind of it slowed down his play, but he's more strategic about it. He has more invested in his gameplay now that he's been playing hardcore, and it's changed his complete mentality of how he goes through and looks at it. And he just wanted he ends it with so I'd like to thank you guys for rekindling my interest in Diablo 3 and making me fall in love with the game all over again. To anyone who has who has had even a passing interest in rolling a hardcore character, or those who have said hardcore sounds boring, I urge you to give hardcore a try. Doing so may cast the game in a whole new light for you, and it will certainly show you why D3 desperately needs ladders. With that, I tip my hat to you, gents. May your hardcore characters live long, and here's hoping that Valeria, my hardcore barb, isn't sitting at the right hand of Crom anytime soon. Kudos for the Conan reference.
That's really cool. I think that, I could definitely sympathize with that. I had no interest in hardcore until I played it, and I think you're right. It was a good challenge to give because you really don't knock it until you try it. You really don't know how much you're going to enjoy hardcore until you level up a character on there.
Yep. And, I mean, eventually you will get so geared out that of course, you're going to graduate from Blackthorns and all of that, and you're going to be going for the straight heavy DPS builds and burn down everything, though you'll always still have to maintain a certain level of resistances. But you look at some of the top hardcore players, and they look exactly the same as the top softcore players. The gear is just ridiculous.
Yeah, it can get pretty crazy. Well, our next email was from Plains. It was directed to me, so I guess I'll take it. He was asking about wizard builds, and he's going for a fire build, meteor spam, he said, but it takes a lot of gear. It says he still needs Cinder Coat and Mirror Ball, and he says Reaper Wraps. I don't think he necessarily needs Reaper Wraps, but he feels like he does, and he wants to know, are there any builds that are viable for new players that don't require an entire new set of gear? And I agree, Plains. I think Fire is probably the hardest build to gear for. And it also has very little crowd control. So you have to have some pretty good toughness, or you have to be grouping with some people that can keep enemies away from you. So I think Fire is probably the most popular right now for high-end wizards. And I'll be interested to see what kind of like Fire Archon builds come out now that Archon can be any elemental type. But if you're new, I would look at Cold. Maybe Lightning, but Cold really, I think, has the most built-in crowd control, which means you can just focus on doing damage and let the cold spells crowd control for themselves. Now, if you don't have any bonuses to elemental at all, there's really no reason to pick one elemental type. I mean, moving forward, eventually you're going to want to enchant to one elemental type, and it's a big advantage to pick one and commit to it. But if you don't have any gear yet, don't worry about what elemental type the spell is. Just get the amount of CC in there, get some damage. There's no reason to have more than one primary damage dealer for most builds. There's a few exceptions that capitalize on that, but for the most part, just an Arcane Orb or a Meteor or a Wave of Force, one big damage dealer that's going to cost some resource, get a primary skill, get the amount of CC you need, but don't take any more than that, and then the rest can be just bonuses to your damage or defense, armor if you need that. But yeah, overall, if you're going to commit to an elemental type, I think Cold's probably the easiest starting out with. Lightning would be second, and then Fire's ultimately where it looks like it's going to be for endgame wizards right now. But overall, if you're just getting to level 70, go with your gear. If your gear gives you bonuses to one elemental type or one skill, try out that elemental type and skill, and you're going to have a big handicap towards whatever builds your legendaries support. So yeah, until you have a big variety of them, just let them kind of decide what skills you use. Let's see, what else we got?
There was another wizard question that we had in there.
Ah, yes, we have one from Gavin here about Hydra. So I'll go ahead and read this real quick. He said, a friend of mine said your podcast was interested in seeing Hydra builds last week. A couple days ago, I got these 2 items to drop, which has allowed me to make what feels like a strong build featuring Hydras from just these 2 items alone. I've been using the Blazing Hydra glyph, and with no additional fire damage on my gear, the 2 Hydras ramp up to dealing 40 to 45 million damage per tick in the group that I run with, a Demon Hunter and Witch Doctor named Titan Mike. For a single skill point, the damage offered by the Hydras is providing to be very worth it. And with more elite damage and or fire damage, they will become significantly more effective. Another point worth mentioning is that Hydra damage is rolled on chest and shoulder pieces, allowing for more min-maxing with their damage. I don't think this build would be possible with overly effective without either the wanding rolling.
I think you meant the wand rolling.
Oh, like getting the wand.
Yep.
The serpent, what was it called? The one that gives you 2 Hydras. Or having these items together. However, I've included my stat sheet in case you want to. So he included the Serpent Wand that gives you 2 Hydras, as well as Tasker Theos, which now also affects Hydras, giving them up to 50% bonus attack speed. It's interesting that he's had such good luck. I think that 40 to 45 million per tick from a Hydra is a lot more than I thought you'd be able to get.
Yeah, that seems a rather decent amount of damage coming from Hydra, especially just if how often does it the fire ones tick per second?
Yeah, once or twice.
Yeah. It's a pretty decent amount of DPS that thing's throwing out per head.
Yeah, I mean, it really makes me question my initial thought, which was that you wouldn't be able to put together a build that was primarily based on Hydra damage. But if he really can get ticks that high, then maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he really is getting most of his damage from Hydras. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I mean, I haven't seen many Hydra builds around, but if he's onto something, maybe I'm wrong. I would love to see more legendaries that gave bonuses to Hydra, but maybe I just need to try it out. Maybe Hydra build's already viable.
Yeah, maybe it's not going to be the most efficient, but it sounds like it definitely would be one that you could use for some fun. I think that I still like my idea from the last episode of having some sort of item that allows the Hydra to pop up out of the ground and follow you around as a pet. That would be awesome.
I guess at heart we all want to be pet classes, right? Like
who doesn't?
Yeah, who doesn't want a little guy following you around doing a ton of damage? But I think maybe deep down inside I have to admit Blizzard's right for saying Witch Doctors, what you roll if you want to be all pet based, and other classes can have a little bit of fun with their pets.
And yeah, whatever.
we don't want everyone just standing back okay, pets. Go do our bidding now.
All right. Moving on. Before we get into the items, we had one other question. Now, I've not actually taken a lot of these questions because a lot of people have sent some feedback and suggestions that they'd like to hear more about Diablo lore or the story, but that's all that they've said. It's we want to hear more about Diablo lore. Well, it's what do you want to know? What would you like to hear about? If there's a particular character or a question or some story element that you'd like to know more about, since lore is kind of my thing. If you have any questions, feel free to send them in. If you want to know more about some character or event, or just Diablo's past, or what the hell the World Stone was, or who Anarius fell to, or anything like that, that's cool. Just let us know. But this one was from Chuck, and he wanted to know. This is not really a lore question, but more of kind of a writing question. Why is Act 4 in both Diablo 2 and Diablo 3 so short? I've been pondering this question for a while, but I can't come up with a good enough answer. My best answer is that it's the epic conclusion, so we're basically just charging at Diablo himself. But then a part of me asks, why wouldn't making it a little bit longer make the build-up feel more powerful and epic? This one was actually answered, I believe, by... dang it, now I can't remember his name. One of the guys on the story team, actually this was quite a few years ago, before Diablo 3 launched, and they said that they were making one of the design elements that they had built into the game with making each act progressively shorter was because they wanted to kind of add in a feeling of urgency. It's like you're having to churn through the story. You're having to get through the act faster and faster and faster because it's all starting to come to a head, and it kind of builds a sense of urgency in the gameplay while you're participating in the story, and that's more or less why it was Diablo 2. That was also kind of an idea, though that also came down to timing and budget and other things like that. But it was definitely something that they went into Diablo 3 with that intent in mind, that they wanted to make each act kind of progressively shorter, even though Act 2 ended up being the longest. But it's just kind of spearheading you in there, so that way it kind of built that epic feeling up as you went. So that's the reasoning why Act 4 was shorter in both games than the other acts.
I feel like that's a good explanation, and I think it would be a good design philosophy if the core of the game was playing through it the first time. And I could be wrong. Maybe the game is so casual, most players only play through it once. I know a lot of players do. But if you're assuming that the average player is going to play through your game dozens, if not hundreds of times, then it seems kind of a waste to focus the entire design of the acts around the first playthrough. I mean, speaking on behalf of all the tinfoil hat wearing players out there, I think they would say, and I'm not endorsing this, I'm just representing the other side. I think they would say the real reason is because they run out of time and money.
Yeah.
That they start making the game with Act 1, and I mean, most games, as we all know, run into scheduling issues, and they have to kind of rush the last half. Even well-planned games usually run out of time when they don't think they're going to. So it makes sense that they might have to kind of be in a crush and just like, okay, let's wrap this up, hurry, get an Act 4 out there. I don't think that's necessarily what happened, but I think that there's probably some truth to that.
Yeah, this is like, I wanted to say like 2009, so it's like a well before the game itself actually released, and they were just talking about that was the intent that they had going through and making it when they still had time to develop the game.
Yeah. I just wonder if I mean, I doubt that a dev would ever come out and be like, "Well, we just ran out of time.
Yeah,
we just had to rush." Like they're gonna come up with a better reason, right? Even if that is the case.
Yeah, of course. There's always going to be the tin foil hat theory. I can say words. I promise I can.
That's pretty good. Even in the correct order and everything. That was impressive.
Yeah, in the correct order. Yeah. I'm improving.
I'm proud.
Thank you. Yeah. So I think that's it that we had for feedback questions. There was one other, just to acknowledge. There's one old school. Thank you for your feedback. But he submitted some questions for the developers.
Oh, cool.
So,
yes.
Yeah, so it's not a lot that we can do here.
Yes. Well, hopefully you got those in. Should we go into our items of the week?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and start off with Bloodwater here. He had an amulet for us. It's just a rare amulet, but it rolled pretty sexy. Low lightning damage, decent attack speed, but then after rerolling that crit damage, it got perfect crit hit and crit damage.
Yeah, which that in and of itself is just insanely impressive. And if people remember Bloodwater from a couple episodes ago, he was the person that had submitted a Crusader for review and then died. He was a hardcore player.
Yes.
And then went and leveled new. He also submitted some images of his death. So I don't know if you've put that up in the
I've got it. Yeah, you can see him fighting Tethras right here, and in this screenshot, Tethras is maybe less than 5% away from death, and he looks to be effectively dead. Oh yeah, and it just says right there, Bloodlord is slain by Bloodwater. Sorry, is slain by Tethras, and then the next picture is him dead.
Yep. If you've never played hardcore before, this is the final screen that you get. And one of the things that I didn't even know about, that I had lost many hardcore characters, that actually the game itself saves a screenshot when you die.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that either.
Yep. So when you die, you get one of these in your screenshot folder. So even if you throw your mouse through the monitor, Alt F4, and go and kick the computer over, you got a screenshot saved somewhere in your hard drive.
I'll have to go check that for my demon hunter. Let's see. Next, we got Dan also submitted 3 pictures. The first one is this very beautiful Thunder Fury. Very high damage, 2451. He got a max bonus to percent damage roll to help him get that, 10%.
Yep.
Very nice lightning damage on there as well. 740 int is almost max, and then of course they all roll with the socket. His proc percentage is 291. I think that can get up to 320.
You would know more than I. You had one.
I'm just making up numbers, but we're gonna say 320. So, but overall, that was really sexy Thunder Fury. And then he had this Renho Flare. We got one of these last week, I believe.
Yeah, someone had submitted a Witch Doctor build that was using it.
Yes. Plague of Toads now seeks out enemies and can explode twice.
Yep.
And this one rolled pretty nice. Could have been a little bit better, but...
It looks like he hasn't re-rolled any of the stats on it.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that with that little icon, he's not re-rolled the socket onto it. If you want to improve that item, re-roll the attack speed. Get it to damage percentage, gold.
Yeah, definitely. And then Dan also submitted a pair of Tasker and Theos. One of 3 pair of Tasker and Theos we got this week. So I think we have to play who's got the best Tasker and Theos here. So you guys in chat, help us decide. We'll start with Dan's Tasker and Theos, which have 710 int. Is that a max of 750 on gloves?
750.
7 attack speed, which is max. 47 crit damage. He re-rolled that, almost max. And 8 crit chance, which is a little low. But overall, I mean, just getting trifecta is hard on Tasker and Theos, and he's got some really nice rolls here.
Yep, I believe the bonus attack speed.
Oh, yes. What is that, 35 to 50?
Oh, so that was pretty high. Let me look that up real quick.
Cool. Yeah, well, 47 either way is probably pretty good. While Nineball's looking that up, I'll go to Ben's Tasker and Theos.
40 to 50%. So.
Oh, okay. Not quite as good as we originally thought. Well, let's see. Ben's Tasker and Theos didn't get a great int roll, only 658. Same attack speed roll, slightly lower crit damage on there, 41, but did get max crit chance, and 41 attack speed on pets. Although I think we can probably agree that Dan's Tasker and Theos were a little bit nicer than Ben's here. Oops.
Yeah, going through and looking at it, because it's that the 2% crit for the 60 intelligence, the 2% attack speed, and the 6% crit damage. I would take that any day.
Yeah. All right, well, the last set of trifecta Tasker and Theos we got was from Wes. His is 640 int, so very bad int, but max attack speed, 45 crit damage, 9 crit chance, and 49 attack speed of pets. So that might be a toss-up. Let me see if I can show these two side by side so people on the stream can decide which one is better there. But anyone's game, I think.
Yeah, I think I have to go with Dan's. The what is it? Got a plan, Stan. So I had to.
I think I got to go with Wes.
Really?
Yeah, so let's see. Wes is gaining 1 crit chance and 2 attack speed on the pets in exchange for 2 crit damage. That is a big int loss. What, that 70 int?
Yeah.
Ah, man. You know what? I think you're right.
Yep.
I think Dan takes it.
Yeah, and just from some of the experiences, depending upon the class that you play with, if you play with, say, like something that Jage pointed out on the anniversary stream with his particular wizard build that uses the Behemoth Hydra or Massive Hydra, that it procs like electric damage, the electric minions obscene amount of times. That lightning resist, is slightly. I would take lightning resist over cold resist.
Just makes sense. Yeah, cold resist not that useful.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's see. Moving on from Tasker and Theos. Next item was also from Wes, and it was a Hellfire Ring. Always nice to get a well-rolled Hellfire Ring. Now, he would have loved a primary stat here, but he got average damage instead. But almost perfect trifecta stats. So rare you get that on a Hellfire Ring.
Mm-hmm. That in and of itself is definitely rare. Now, he did... I don't know what it is that he re-rolled the critical hit chance into, but I almost feel Oh no, that one's kind of hard to say. I think I might have taken, instead of the damage, the base stat. Personally, I don't know.
Is there always a base stat on the Hellfire Ring? On the new ones?
No, on the new ones, no,
Oh, okay.
not any longer.
Yeah, it's hard to say without knowing what it was, I suppose.
Yeah,
Yeah, I definitely would have rather had a primary stat than average damage. But that's yeah, that is a Hellfire ring worth drooling over.
that it is.
Well, from Danny Ray, who likes to submit things to our show,
Uh huh.
we got a fine penetrator. We have Danny Ray's fine penetrator.
Uh huh.
That's
The name makes me giggle.
that's all we needed. I think we can move on now. That's
There,
everyone.
that I was playing late at night, and I wish that I was just kind of like sleepingly like clicking through and salvaging my items. I found this one item that I wish that I had kept because I used to like to hold on to items. Like you'd find awful pike, and it was awful,
Yeah.
you know, and there was one wizard offhand that was a skull that I wish that I had kept because its name was Penetrating Gift. And that is a name for the internet. I wish
It's the kind of item you want to give to someone.
yes, that definitely is. I would like to gift you something that penetrates.
Penetrating gift is just for you.
Hmm.
Let's see. After Danny Ray's fine penetrator, we have Kyle's Kane's gloves. A little blurry, but looks like they are almost very
This
close to being perfect,
very very close to being perfect.
and
He is
potentially perfect.
half a percent off from critical hit chance, and that is the stat that he is rerolling.
Yeah.
So it dropped with perfect strength, or not dropped, he crafted it with perfect strength, perfect attack speed, and perfect critical hit damage. So it's 750 strength, 7 attack speed, and 50% critical hit damage for our listeners on iTunes and Stitcher, and the 9.5% critical hit chance. And that's the stat that he's re-rolling. So that could be perfect. If you're listening or watching to this not tonight, or if you're listening to us, later on iTunes or Stitcher, I definitely say submit that when it is perfect. Resubmit it when it was perfect, and we will show it again because that thing is beautiful.
Yeah, normally if I had a 9.5 crit roll, I would say I'm good. 9.5 is good, but I might have to make an exception for here. What about you? How many times would you re-roll to try to get that 10%?
I don't know. At that point, is just so close that I would want to do it just for having it. Whether I even needed these gloves or not,
Even
I
if
would
you're
just
like
do
a
it.
monk, you're just gonna.
Exactly. It'd just be like I'm a witch doctor and I have to use Tasker and Theos because I'm a pet build and I had those. I would just do it to have it and just say, look at this statistical anomaly. Look at it.
Yeah, that's pretty sexy. We're getting some pretty nice items. Thank you guys for submitting these. We also have a puzzle ring from Necro here that I don't know how you guys are getting these. I think we have some hacksaws watching our stream, but this is also near perfect. We have 4 away from perfect int, 496, perfect attack speed, perfect crit chance, and the one he's re-rolling is 44 out of 50 crit damage. If you got that to 50, you'd have a perfect ring minus 4 int. And yeah, Puzzle Ring just got a doubling of the legendary drop chance, so might even be worth using for that affix now.
Yeah. And now see, he made our job easier because he held down shift while he was looking at the item and taking the screenshot.
Yes, that does help.
We don't have to go looking for it.
I just wish it would show the I wish it would show the max rolls on the legendary affixes when you did that.
That would be nice.
Yeah. All right, we got a lot of items this week. We have one more still, and those are just some rare gloves from Peter. And they once again almost max. He has enchanted max attack speed on here. He is 29 away from max strength has max crit damage and 1 away from max crit chance. They're just rare gloves, but still a fairly nice roll there.
Yeah, still nice. It's strength and it rolled physical resistance, which isn't bad since you're always going to be in melee.
Yeah, true story. I'm always ignoring the secondary stats. You're good on you for checking those out.
Mm-hmm. It's for the developer stream. I was leveling a monk, and so the secondary stat actually had meaning. And then on my hardcore demon hunter, I can get discipline as a secondary stat. So if the item itself rolled good enough, I would still re-roll it to try and get discipline for the items that could roll it, because that is an amazing survivability stat for demon hunters, having 70, 80, 90 discipline.
That makes sense. Yeah, as a wizard, I don't think I've ever re-rolled a secondary stat. Although, yeah, thinking back to right after the game came out, stat priorities were quite a bit different, huh?
Yeah, that they were. It's funny that you would mention that. Thinking back to the beginning of when the game came out, being anniversary week and such.
Oh yeah, it just happens to be that last week was the anniversary.
Yes, isn't it?
What a coincidence.
Yeah. So, why don't we talk about that?
Yeah. Well, we'll just rewind a little bit at a time. So let's rewind a little bit first back to right when D3 came out.
Mm-hmm.
And you were playing Demon Hunter back then?
Era 37.
What was that? Oh, you were just Era 37. That was the class here. Yeah, we went back too far. Go forward a little bit now.
Okay, go forward a little bit. I was maining my monk. Pretty much through all of Classic, I was maining my monk, and that was mildly infuriating.
So what, you went like super tanky at the beginning?
You had to. There was no other choice. Yeah, like melee characters, all characters back then, they had to just go super tanky. The monk was using.
Well, I guess on hardcore, all characters did.
Well, at this point in time, I was a softcore character.
Well, I think the trend around there was either you go all tank, no damage, or all damage, die if you ever get hit.
Yep. Though even if you were all tank, no damage, you died a lot once you got to Inferno. In Act 2, as a melee class, you were hosed. It was insane. That's where the whole "and then we doubled it" joke comes from the Diablo community, because they had tuned it up to the point. They had tuned the damage up to the point where the developers had problems clearing content, and then they doubled it. And now Birdie remembers this, and he's living through the Tales of Terror. And it was just so bad trying to play my monk and try to get him through Act 2 that I just called it quits and I leveled up Wizard.
Yeah, Wizards were the way to go back then, back when they were still pretty glitchy.
I guess that's probably one of my greater accomplishments in the game, was that feeling of beating Diablo with my Wizard on Inferno, because I did it pre-nerf.
Yeah.
Post Force Armor nerf.
Yes, that's when I did it as well. But yeah, I'm not proud about the way I did it.
Oh, this sounds like a story.
No, I mean, there's no enrage timer on Diablo, so my I mean, it's on YouTube still, but my first Diablo kill was maybe, I want to say, like a week after the game came out. But all I did was I just kept throwing up Venom Hydra by Diablo and then running away. I just stayed away the entire fight. It took like 20 minutes.
Good old Blizzard Hydra. You just sat there with like Magic Missile, Blizzard, and Venom Hydra, and that's how you killed everything.
I had nothing but Hydra doing damage. It was all like defensive spells. Like I had Diamond Skin and Mirror Image and Teleport and Prismatic, and then just Venom Hydra. I just threw it up there and ran like 50 yards away.
Oh yeah, and for those that might not have played or don't remember, the very first kill of Inferno Diablo was a solo player that went through and found the old Force Armor, made it to where you couldn't be hit for more than 35% of your health. So none of his gear had Vitality on it, and he stacked like 3,000 life per second. So basically, he had 3,000 life, and he regained all of it every second, and every one of Diablo's hits could only deal 35% of his health and damage. So he would take a hit and then heal to full, take a hit, heal to full, take a hit, heal to full. Because Diablo never really attacked that fast, so he always had that constant healing going on, and that's how we beat him. It was horribly buggy, very exploitive, and that's how a lot of people jumped on the bandwagon, went and killed Diablo. I was still playing my monk at the time, but eventually was like, screw it, I'm loving my wizard. And then they fixed it, and they made it to where it could only prevent damage up to, I think it was 100% of your life.
Yeah.
So if you only had 3,000 life, it would only absorb up to 3,000 damage. So you actually had to stack vitality, but it was
Yeah, it was fun while it lasted.
yeah.
That was back to when before they'd ever nerfed critical mass, and it went through maybe 3 or 4 waves of nerfing. But before they ever nerfed it, living lightning would proc so much. Even with 5% crit, you could have run the critical mass permafreeze build back then. And then it was so bugged or so overpowered back then that in their in patch 1.0.2 no 1.0.2 they just completely disabled critical mass. It did nothing. Like they had no time to fix it, but it was so OP they just turned it off for an entire patch. But yeah, those were good times. I mean, I really enjoyed the fact that I had to stop at Hell and farm before going to Inferno.
Mm-hmm. I didn't really so much have a problem with that one, and
I really enjoyed it. I like that.
Oh, yeah, I really enjoyed that aspect as well, and I kind of enjoyed the theory behind having to farm in Act 1 to get to Act 2, and then farming Act 2 to get to Act 3. But I guess it was just like one of those negative aspects of the auction house is that people that were in Act 4 were just farming blues and selling item level 63 blues in the auction house for obscene amounts of money because it was impossible to get them in Act 1 and Act 2 back before they changed it all around. And I think it was 1.0.3 is when they nerfed Inferno and made it so that way the item level 63 gear could drop in any act in Inferno.
Yeah, sounds right. I think it was the right call because they are Blizzard and most of their players are casual. But I can't help but make a correlation between Diablo and World of Warcraft. I think a lot of the hardcore players miss from both of those titles the progression. You have to do this before you can do this, and you have to do that before you can do that. And in both those games, they've transitioned towards casual players and given them kind of shortcuts, making it easy to catch up, and really making it easier to get to the hardest difficulties. Which again, I think is the best call because that's the majority of their players. But for us that have no lives and will commit our lives to these games, I do miss that hardcore progression that we were kind of forced into.
Yeah, definitely. I do remember going and farming through like Nightmare back in D2, trying to get all of my resists to what was it? At least having like 120, 130 resistance to each type before going into Hell because you got smacked with the negative 100 resist when you went in. So if you weren't prepared, you're actually taking increased damage, and it would just with the scaling, it was insane. So it was not a pleasant thing to walk into.
That makes sense. Yeah, I played such little D2. I mean, I thought I was playing a lot of D2, but I didn't know what gaming was back then. Like it probably wasn't until World of Warcraft where I really experienced what playing a game for 8 to 16 hours a day felt like. The thing I remember more than anything from D2 was bloody foothills runs.
Yeah.
Just starting from the first waypoint in Act 5 and just clearing back to town, doing those all day long.
My, what a messy little demon. I played way too much of the Necromancer, and I did my fair share of Blood Hills ones, killing Shank the Overseer.
Yeah.
Good times. But going from there, what was it? It was 1.0.4 is when they added in Paragons and Nephilim Valor, and that is that kind of changed the name of the game from that point forward.
Yeah, I think it was around 1.0.3, 1.0, probably right before 1.0.4, where players really started, I think, getting upset about the state of the game.
Hmm.
Game came out, everyone was really happy for at least a few weeks before people started complaining. It wasn't until, yeah, maybe a few months people started realizing, like, wait, this is the whole game, right? This is all we're getting. And I think zero point 0.4 was kind of their first response to, like, no, wait, there's more. Don't stop
Yeah.
playing yet. We have Paragon and better items, and it
Yep.
really made a good, I think, attempt to grab the players.
Yeah, because then improving upon that in zero point 0.5 is when they introduced the Infernal Machine, your first kind of like Uber event, which was a huge hit in D2. The Pandemonium event was amazing, still is, as well as Monster Power. So they added in those two things to actually kind of give uh, kind of different avenues. So you can tailor it with Monster Power. You could tailor the game. They greatly nerfed Inferno, but you could tailor the difficulty to however you wanted. And I remember back then people were saying, "Oh, Monster Power 10 is impossible."
Yeah.
Um, and then of course they had the Infernal Machine, so you could go and make your Hellfire Ring to help facilitate your Paragon leveling.
Yeah, I mean, really, I mean, as much as people hated on the original Diablo, or at least hardcore players, I think casual players were always pretty happy with it. The patches that came out afterwards really were spot on. I think maybe not enough according to most players, but in the right direction for sure.
Yeah, there was 0.7 is when they added in brawling.
Yeah, wait, you
Yeah,
skipped 0.6.
there wasn't anything at
Wait,
0.6.
0.6. That was the greatest patch of all time. It was just
Fixed an
a
issue that allowed players to bypass the 1 second trade timer when exchanging items via the trade window. Fixed an issue that caused the same item to occasionally drop for players using Threatening Shout with the Grim Harvest Rune.
they never said anything about that. They released that out there. Okay, because let's talk about the elephant in the room. In Vanilla D3, no patches were content patches, right? We never got 1.1.
Yeah, there
We,
was
they
no one.
they
Yeah,
talked about 1.1. I think the problem is they promised us PvP by 1.1.
yeah, and then they never made 1.1.
It's like, oh, perfect solution. We'll just never release 1.1, and then
That's,
so really the point oh point blank were our content patches, but
mhm.
somehow 1.0.6 came out as a content patch, even though it looked pretty much like a hot fix.
Yeah, that it was. And then zero point 0.7 they introduced the PvP, and it was definitely nothing what anyone was expecting and or hoping for, given what they had showed at previous years.
Although I think they made a fair point because a lot of people were complaining that D2 was superior to D3 because of PvP.
Uh-huh.
But we saw that's not true. Maybe people liked PvP in D2, but in my opinion, I think brawling kind of showed that what we need is not D2 style PvP.
Yeah, I definitely I think the community, we want PvP, and even though brawling was kind of, well, here's kind of what you had in Diablo 2, respect that we're looking for more. We expect, and I think on a little bit, if I can be selfish, I think we kind of deserve a little bit more than just that. There's something that a lot of people want and expect. It's a form of in-game content that gives you a continually new experience because you're always fighting against different people. It's a different battle every time, whether you win or lose.
Yeah.
And so it's something that most people expect in almost every modern game, especially ones that are multiplayer. Where's the PvP aspect? Even a new game from Bungie coming out called Destiny, which from the ground up was built to kind of be more of a multiplayer experience where you go with teams in order to complete objectives and stuff like that from a first person shooter perspective. They still acknowledge the fact that people are going to want to have a competitive multiplayer experience where they fight against other people. So it's definitely something that the community is still holding on to hope for. They still haven't said that they've canceled it. They're not going to do it. Every time that you ask, it's something that's on the table. It's long-term discussion, or is it? I don't know. I'll continue to hold out hope because anyone that's been to some of the past BlizzCons will tell you one of the greatest booths that they had there was the Diablo Arena demo, where you got to just go in the 5v5, what is it? Kill teams, and it was just beautiful. It was amazing. It was awesome. I lost every single match that I played in while I was there. You had to wait an hour in line. It went from one end of the convention center to the other, but everyone enjoyed it. It was great. And I would have, they kind of just threw us brawling. They could have just thrown us that, just.
I have mixed feelings about it. Now I never played it at BlizzCon, but from reading what the dev said about it, it seems like the team deathmatch you had at BlizzCon was limited skills and gear. The gear was predetermined, and you had certain skills that you were able to use.
Yeah, that was all predetermined.
So it's and I gotta say, like on streaming, we used to do vendor gear duels where everyone can only buy their gear from vendors, and then we go in and duel, and that felt fairly balanced. So it's not too surprising to me that you can find a certain set of gear and skills where it feels good. I think the problem is just that when you unleash players to do their own theory crafting, it's almost impossible to balance. And most skills aren't meant to be used on other players, so they don't feel good when you're using them on someone that's trying to avoid your attacks.
Yep.
1.0.8.
Yeah, 1.0.8. That was the final kind of content patch that we had. They added in the buff to multiplayer co-op.
Demonic essences.
Demonic essences. They revamped crafting completely.
I think demonic essences was my favorite change in vanilla.
Yeah, it made crafting relevant, which was one thing that I really enjoyed, and because it making you obviously with the auction house gold like inflated out of control. Is because they didn't really have that good of a gold or material sink, so it just kept building and building and building. The adding of the demonic essences and actually making crafting relevant, I feel greatly helped the economy in that respect, and kind of helped give it a little bit of stability as the months went on. Inflation didn't go up that much, and the price of gold actually, like after 1.8 for the first time, you saw gold increase in value instead of decrease in value.
So there's definitely I think it was a step towards them getting rid of the auction house and making legendaries BOA, which is really it was the first step towards you find your own gear. Maybe second if you count Hellfire rings.
Yeah, that it was. It definitely was like a little transition step, and I mean it worked. People loved crafting. It was great. You could make your own gear that was best in slot. Didn't have to rely on the auction house, and so it gave people the kind of putting some of the RNG in their own hands. They had a little bit more control over it.
Yeah, definitely.
And then here we are, Reaper of Souls.
Here we are. Went forever without a patch after 1.0.8. But
yeah. And this was actually a question that I had got to ask Alex Mayberry, who's no longer on the Diablo team. He just left for Star Citizen back at last BlizzCon.
That's the Kickstarter, right?
Yes.
It's really cool.
We asked him in an interview about the 1.0.8 and like where they kind of transitioned. Well, at what point did we need to stop developing for Diablo 3, and when do we need to start developing for Reaper of Souls? And they said that it kind of was, they went and did 1.0.8, and then that was it. Everything from that point forward is just Reaper of Souls. That's why it went for a very, very long time. It was it was
it was like 1.0. It was like summer.
Yeah, that was May. That was May 6th when 1.0.8 came out.
That's right, because the anniversary stream that year, I think it was Wyatt Chang and Travis Day were on my stream, and I was farming demonic essences.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we went a really long time without any content.
Yeah, but it ended up working out. People enjoyed. People continued to play.
Yeah.
Also with the experience changes that they had there. That's when you started seeing tons of people dinging the Paragon 100. So, tons of fun. And they're also mentioning, yes, thank you. I don't even know how to pronounce your name. Vithdil?
Too many consonants, not enough vowels.
Yeah, no vowels.
Vowels overrated.
The other big thing of 0.8 was, of course, the monster density change. Everyone at that point was farming only Act 3. because that had the best density, that was the best experience that you could gain per hour. Everyone was doing it. And then 1.0.8 came out and it gave people alternatives. They upped the monster density in all of the acts, and instead of farming Act 3, you then started farming Act 1. But
Fields of Misery.
you didn't feel that bad going to the other acts to farm if you wanted to change a pace, because they were relatively close unless you were in a very hardcore monster power 10 doing specifically crypt runs, and but
Yeah,
for
much
the average
closer.
player, there wasn't much difference.
Yeah, and now here we are, Reaper Souls. I think we're heading in the right direction, but I guess we'll have to wait and see how 2.1 turns out.
Yeah, we'll see. A lot of hope is riding on the tiered rifts and the seasons. I think a lot of people are going and talking about tiered rifts, but I think people will be excited for the seasons. Some people have said that they don't want to play seasons, they don't want to give up their character, but you haven't had that experience of restarting a new character in a fresh ladder and such. It's invigorating. Yeah, you'll enjoy it. Trust me.
Definitely.
Trust me.
Yeah, it just reminds me of before server transfers in WoW, starting on a new realm right when it opened.
Oh, I love doing that.
Yeah, it's kind of like the feeling you get if you ever run like a marathon or even like a 5K. You're all
Mm-hmm.
there, start at the same time. Feels good to not be like 200 miles behind the people at the front.
Yeah, that it does. That it does. Um, I think we've run kind of long here. I'm not sure if we'll have time for the build. Should we save it for next week?
I completely forgot about the build, so that makes more sense about how you were pushing
uh,
things along and I was kind of dragging my feet. Yeah, I think our anniversary section maybe filled our build section for this week.
yeah, but we have a fire-based crusader coming for you next week, which we'll go through and cover. Because I have just been having the urge to play my Crusader ever since patch 2.0.5. Now that my schedule is clear and I can go back to being a nerd that sits in front of my computer all day long, I'm going to go through and I'm going to actually put some time in on my Crusader and play it. So we'll
Nice.
have that for next week.
And that'll be very, very sexy, I'm sure. Can't wait to see your fiery crusader.
You know. Oh, excuse me. I think that kind of wraps it up. Unless there's any other memories you have of Diablo days gone past.
No, I think that was about it, other than like duping wind forces in D1.
Uh huh.
That was
You know,
all.
one of my first purchases in the auction house, I spent like five, 5 or 7 million gold on a blue axe that was 960 DPS and nothing else.
I bought. I shouldn't say this because it's illegal.
Uh-huh.
I bought my brother a million gold for his birthday.
Uh-oh.
2 months after
Uh-huh.
D3 came out.
Uh-huh.
Guess how much a million gold was?
I am going to guess like back then, what was that? That was probably like
It
three
was
bucks.
it was $17
Holy crap! I
for
don't remember
one
that.
million gold.
Wow.
Yeah, and I
What?
think one of the things he bought was a two-handed blue weapon.
Uh-huh.
That's the way to go.
Back then, I mean, this was fresh for my monk before I leveled my wizard. You know, if you never knew, all those yellow like 1,000 plus DPS one-handers in the auction house, those were all duped. For people that don't know, those were all duped items. Or not,
Oh,
they weren't duped. What they were is there was a bug in the game at some point. I forget which patch it was, but you could craft an item and then like crash your game and then get all of the mats back.
ah,
And so what they would do is they would just craft a full inventory full of crafted weapons, take the good ones, drop them on the ground, have another person pick them up, crash their game, come back, and then all of the crafting materials were, refunded. Do it again. Do it again. That's why That's why you could never find anything that was comparable to all of those level 62 one-handed weapons of that were like 1,200, 1,300 damage with sockets and life steal and critical hit damage. There was a crafting bug, and that's how they all got in there. But even before that, at the very beginning of the game, high DPS blue weapons, because no one could get the item level 63 stuff, were like something that you would pay good money for because it's the only way you could progress. You couldn't get the items to help you get through Act 3 unless you could play Act 3. So it was a funny thing. And that was also the time period that was before they nerfed attack speed. And I had gotten an amulet that was like attack speed, crit damage, no main stat, magic find, and life on hit. And I sold it for, I want to say, like $113 in the real money auction house.
That's crazy.
Within 3 weeks of launch, and just had that. It's like that paid for my collector's edition. So that was nice. I never had anything that even got close to that in terms of sales, but it was that nice one little thing.
That was nice. Yeah, I never made any big sales in the auction house. If I did, it was for gold, so I could buy some more loot. I was Diablo greedy, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, here we are, and I think we're looking a lot better than original vanilla. I'm excited to see what the next patches will roll out with.
Yeah, definitely. It's something that looking forward to. Really looking forward to. I'm wondering when we'll see patch 2.0.1. Joshua Square, kind of he flat out said there'll be a PTR, so we will see. We'll see an announcement, I guess, before the announcement. So we'll see the PTR go live before they really announce the release date, and then from there we might have one or 2 months before we actually get to play the game. Or play 2.1, not play the game. You know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, I'll be on PTR, I'm sure, but yeah, it looks like it's right around the corner.
Yeah, should. I would hope that we'd actually get 2.0.1 before the end of June.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we will. I agree. Well, I think we've reminisced enough on the anniversary. Hopefully we've caught you guys up on the news, and next week we'll be bringing you a new Crusader build.
Yep.
I think that wraps up episode 8 of Westmarch Workshop.
That it does.
If you guys want to send in your feedback, don't forget the email address is westmarchworkshop@blizzpro.com. We read pretty much all the feedback and show pretty much all the items of the week, so we really appreciate that. Tweet us at ArchonTheWizard and at 9ballgamer. And
just keep an eye on us. You can subscribe to us on iTunes and Stitcher. And if you do listen to us on iTunes or Stitcher, I mean, your feedback there means a ton. If you want to leave us a rating or a review, then we would definitely appreciate it. Really helps us out in terms of getting visibility, because we've kind of been getting a little bit popular watching the download numbers on iTunes there.
Way to go. Well, thank you guys for listening, for rating. It really helps us out. Remember, you can check us out every Wednesday at 6 p.m. on twitch.tv/ArchonTheWizard.
6 p.m. Pacific.
Yes, 9 p.m.
Eastern.
So until next week.
All right. Take it easy, everybody.
See you guys.